Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Market Monday. Now, a little bit of disclaimer, there will be spoilers from Aether Revolt for the discussion for Market Monday. This is kind of being a hybrid episode, mainly talking about the cards that are spoiled today, and then the second part is talking about the financial value or the financial impact this will have on multiple formats. And as you may notice, the title of this video is Aether Revolt is a game changer, and I think that there is one specific card that was spoiled today that is insanely powerful, and I'm calling it right now the best card to be printed in years. I would say since maybe Abrupt Decay or Deathrite Shaman, as far as a card that will impact multiple formats and just be a staple. Also, I know that I'm a big Frontier cheerleader. This is just what Frontier needs. I had a discussion with, we played two Frontier format or tournaments on Friday, and it really seemed like red is a color in Frontier that has the edge on the rest of the colors just because it has a one-drop answer to Jace or has a one-drop answer to multiple threats in the format with cards like Fiery Impulse and Wild Slash and those type of cards that can actually deal with just the early creature-based aggros. So anywho, if you don't want spoilers, click away right now. We are going to get into the spoilers. So, of course, the card that I am talking about that is going to be the biggest game changer that we've seen in a long time is Fatal Push. Fatal Push is 1 mana instant speed. Destroy target creature that has converted mana cost 2 or less. Also has the new mechanic of Revolt, which means if a permanent has left the battlefield this turn, then Revolt happens, and you can destroy a creature if its converted mana costs 4 or less instead. So that is huge. That is everything in Modern, and it's so easy to get that off in Modern because there's this wonderful thing called fetch lands. Fetch lands exist with Fatal Push. So you can kill a converted mana cost 4 creature with just a fetch land with the Fatal Push. So that's even cards like Thought-Knot Seer at that point, or even like what are some other 4-drops? Olivia Voldarian or Kalidas that can be killed with a fetch land. Now, we do sort of have a fetch land-ish in the format called Evolving Wilds that can be a great enabler for Fatal Push. So instead of looking at the other cards right now, let's just talk about Fatal Push for a good, who are we kidding? It'll probably be 10 minutes of talking about this card. So I think that I'm so happy that this is an uncommon. Well, of course, the financial standpoint, if we'd want this to be a rare or a mythic just because you can hoard them and then sell them later, of course, because the uncommons are in a weird spot, though. I actually do like uncommons because sometimes they go under the radar and you can pick them up in bulk. I would be stockpiling this card until this card gets out of its drafts, and then even continue to target this card like crazy. Because I am calling it right now, this is the game changer. This is the Path to Exile that white has, or the Lightning Bolt that red has for black. We have Dismember right now, which is really good, actually. Dismember is a very, very solid card, but the cost of actually paying life in the format is, a lot of times you have to pay the 4 life for Dismember if you want to actually cast it for 1, which is what Fatal Push is. 4 life is huge. 4 life in a format with like Suicide Zoo and Burn and on those type of decks that can just aggro out Zoo very quickly. Fatal Push is not costing you any life to kill all of the decks that infect Zoo. Hits everything in Infect. Everything in Infect. Hits everything in Affinity. Same thing with Zoo. Hits all the cards in Zoo. With the exception of maybe like Geist if they're playing the bigger Zoo. Against Jund, it's going to hit the Dark Confidant and the Tarmogoyf. Against, man, you name the decks right now, unless it's cheating in something to play that has a higher converted mana cost, it's going to kill it. And then, like I said, it's going to scale very well with the fetch land. Then anything converted mana cost 4 or less is going to be able to kill with a fetch land. So Fatal Push is insanely powerful. It's exactly the card that we need in Frontier to push control into existence, and I think that it's going to be very healthy for Standard as the go-to answer to Smuggler's Copter. So they were right. Sam Stoddard was right. We do have an answer now for Smuggler's Copter. Let's just look at Standard. So we looked at Modern. Hits a lot of decks in Modern. We'll go over the metagame in just a second. Let's just pull that up, actually. So let's just look over at the Standard metagame. Against White Blue Flash, if we can actually end up killing the Selfless Spirit early, and it can actually kill the Smuggler's Copter. So I actually do like it in the U-White Flash, and then with this a little bit of help, it can actually kill the Spell Queller, or even the Reflector Mage. I don't think you really care much about killing the Spell Queller, but or the Reflector Mage, but the Spell Queller can easily be killed, and then a spell back with just 1 mana. I mean, this we'll talk about some other ways to enable it in a second too, but I think it's really good versus the Blue-White Flash. Marvel, not too much, doesn't really kill much in Marvel, but Mardu Vehicles, it kills basically everything in the deck, from Scrap Heap Scroungers to Toolcraft Exemplars to the Inspectors to the Inventor's Apprentice. All of these cards, it does a great job. If they even go bigger with Cultivator's Caravan and Smuggler's Copter, Cultivator's Caravan, again, with just a little bit of help, it can kill it. So very good against that deck. We have the RB Aggro, very good against everything in this deck because it kills the Scrap Heap Scrounger, Inventor's Apprentice, the Courier, and the Smuggler's Copter early, and then can take care of the Bloodhall Priest later on. Then and also it's probably going to be a decent little addition to the red-black aggro. Green-red energy just gets so much worse now because it does kill the Cub, the Servant, and the Voltaic Brawler early, and then later on can kill the Pummeler and the Bristling Hydra with just a little bit of help. So it's great against that deck. And the Dynavolt, there's a very, very key card that it kills in the Dynavolt, which is the Thing in the Ice. A lot of them actually run Thing in the Ice in the main, but it takes care of the Thing in the Ice for any sort of Thing in the Ice type spell. So again, back in the modern format, we have a lot of decks that this is going to interact quite well with. So we have Modern, that it's going to be able to take care of everything out of Jund, basically everything out of Infect. Dredge, it's going to be useless against Dread. Against Burn, it takes care of the Guy, the Eidolon, all of those. Abzan, it actually surprisingly does well versus Abzan, because again, with just a little bit of help, it can take care of, if they're running like Courser of Crewfix, it can take care of that. It can take care of Anafenza, Tarmogoyf, Scavenging Ooze, Grim Flayer, Noble Hierarch. All of those are just dead to the Fatal Push with the fetch land. Let's be serious here. In Modern, that's 4, converted mana cost 4 or less is going to be incredibly easy to enable. So I think that maybe we're going to start seeing Abzan decks get the nudge over Jund. One of the things that Jund had over Abzan is it had, instead of giving them a ramp out of Path to Exile, you can just Lightning Bolt off something early. Yes, the damage could be used later on against like Planeswalkers or just straight to the face, which is one of the advantages to Lightning Bolt, but I don't know if like Abzan likes to go bigger usually, and it's an easy one-drop instant speed spell that can take care of anything in the format that has a lot more. It can take care of opposing Tarmogoyfs a lot better than Lightning Bolts can do. And same thing with Grim Flayer. Grim Flayer, if it gets Delirium, Lightning Bolt doesn't do anything against. So very good against that card. So over to Grixis Delver, this is another good matchup that they'll be brought in against. It can take care of the Snapcaster Mage and the Delver, but if they're running Young Pyromancer or Thing in the Ice, it can take care of those two as well. It doesn't quite kill either the Tasker or the Angler, so these Delve cards might actually get a much better in the format. Splinter Twin, if Splinter Twin ever does get unbanned, it still is a fetch land away from being able to kill the Deceiver Exarch. So I think that right now that Splinter Twin absolutely should be unbanned. We should really be talking about Splinter Twin's time to come back. I think that maybe that Modern should have that philosophy. Instead of doing permanent bans, they should just do like a maybe 1 season hiatus. So say that like Twin is really, really oppressive for a season, then they ban it for a season, not indefinitely, and then just see if the metagame can just to give people a nudge. Because a lot of times I think that what happens with the results is people just look at the last results and say, hey, Splinter Twin did so well, I'm going to play it. So it gets all these like Mimic decks playing it just because they think it's the best deck, and then it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if half the tournament shows with Infect or with Splinter Twin, then just the odds, just pure odds that the tournament is going to be won by Splinter Twin are going to be in its favor. So I think the Wizards really need to take that into consideration, that has a lot to do with tournament finishes. I would say even more than anything. I mean, certainly there is some sort of ones like the Aether Marvel in the last Pro Tour that was just terrible because everyone thought it was the best deck, and most people played it, and they ended up just not being pretty bad for the meta. And of course, now people have adjusted and made Marvel a deck that can actually deal with early and late game decks. But anywho, that's the exception. Most of the time, if the deck that is being played the most is played at a specific tournament, it's going to have the most top 8 finishes. It's just odds. This is a game of variance. This is a game of odds. The most cards that are used in the tournament will probably the ones that will be showing up in the video coverage the most, and then lead to more people playing it. And that's why these like first tournaments in a standard season are very, very important to set the kind of the tone of the meta for the next like 4 months. So anywho, I really, really like the Fatal Push. I think that it's a game changer for every format. I think it's even legacy playable. Not quite sure if they quite want... Yeah, they probably do, because it, again, takes care of so many cards in the Legacy format. But for Modern, Frontier, and Standard, the Fatal Push is definitely a game changer. I think this is going to be a $2 uncommon, so I don't know what it's pre-selling for right now, but you should definitely be trying to pick up as many copies of this, as this is going to be easy trade fodder later on when people... one thing that set me aside from a lot of people that I used to play with at my local game store is I would be the only one that would bring uncommons, and so people would be able to... I'd be able to like trade up, value the uncommons for slightly more than they're actually worth, and then trade for like rares later on and whatnot. So anywho, I really, really think that you should be keeping your eyes peeled for the Fatal Push and picking those cards up. Let's go back to some other spoilers that I think are also game changers in the format. I really like this Whir of Invention. The Whir of Invention is what they're calling the Court of Calling for blue. So for artifacts. So this card is insanely good in a number of different decks in Modern that are trying to get a specific artifact. Where I really like this even is a control shell that can go get like Ensnaring Bridge or Vidalcan Shackles, for example. So you can actually use this as more of a toolbox-based card. And 6 mana, even to get a 3-drop, is not that terrible in a control deck when you're control, and then you just need something to finish off the game. Where this also shines is in something like Affinity, where you can specifically go get an Arcbound Ravager, and every one of your artifacts can help pay for that X. Yes, you will initially need to pay for the 3 blue, but then it's just you can tap Ornithopters and even the Single Pests, or what are they even running these days in Affinity? But any one of those earlier cards can then be used to specifically go and get a Cranial Plating or a Arcbound Ravager, which are very, very key for those combinations. Then we have like Crackclan Ironworks type decks where this gets insane with too, because it can go get your other pieces. We have sort of the Meek that it can go get with the Thopter combo. There is just a lot of cards that are artifacts in addition to their type that you can go get. I think that even I've made an Artificer Tribal before, with the Grand Architect and whatnot, that can easily start... X can easily be paid for to go get a big, like even like a Darksteel, what's the one that Forge that gives everything indestructible, for example. Of course, I'm not saying you should go get that, but you can get plenty of just really, really broken cards, and this is the tutor of choice. Instant speed, that is super, super critical. End of turn instant speed. Whir of Invention, win the game with whatever degenerate combo. So definitely keep your eye out for this one. Court of Calling took a while to be picked up until it hit, its $8 price or $9 price. And again, this is a nice little game changer for Modern and Frontier and for Standard. I think it's perfect card for that format. The last one I want to talk about is as far as huge market, well, we'll talk about a few others here, is Sram, the Senior Edificer. This card I like to call Pure Steel on Crack because it gives you also the ability for auras and vehicles. So auras are interesting because you can even use... for removal spells, now you can use cards like even Pacifism. Is that even in the format? I think it is, but I think or Malfunction. There's definitely a lot of aura-based cards that then say draw a card with them. So even think of what's the aura that -2/-2 out of Shadows of Innistrad. Not Disfigure, does the same thing as Disfigure. Deadweight. Deadweight with the Senior Edificer is really, really good too. So kill something, give something -2/-2, and draw a card. Yeah, please. Yes, please. The only problem is this is a legendary, so you can't stack them like Pure Steel Paladins. Of course, this will go in Pure Steel Paladin. Will this be enough to actually make Pure Steel legit in Modern? I don't know. So I think you should be looking at Pure Steel pieces, maybe investing in the Pure Steel Paladin deck, and see if this will actually push it over the top. Again, same thing, the Whir of Invention. I don't think that right now you should be necessarily thinking about investing in these specific cards, but investing in what these cards enable. So just some food for thought with the SRAM. Also with this dude, vehicles. Vehicles, it just makes a lot of... It's on curve with the Cultivator's Caravan, And its equipments is where, of course, I'm going to butt break this card as soon as possible. It's one of kind of my pet decks in the format is red-white equipments, because you still have the weapon craft, or yeah, weapon trainer, and you still have the ally out of that. Whenever a creature that's been equipped dies, draw a card. And this is just another way to make all of your equipment cards just draw you cards. So all of those bone splinters, just draw. We all know exactly how that works in Pure Steel Paladin. It can lead to some storm-based combos. The best thing we have for storm right now is the Aether Flux Reservoir in the format, but this works perfectly in an equipment-based Aether Flux Reservoir. It would be cast draw, and then play something like the Octopus Surge card that sends everything back to your hand, and then you play it all out again, and then you just gain a bazillion life, and one basically with the or the Paradox Outcome's probably the best one. Anything that just bounces whatever amount of equipment's in. In Modern, you have what's the one where you turn all artifacts you control back to their hand? 1 mana. It's out of old school Mirrodin, I believe. There's the one that sends ones that your opponents have back to their hand, or each player. And then there's the one that sends only yours, I believe, or yours, or... Anyway, those exist, and I think that this is another one that enables that type of combo. And so there's just a lot of degenerate things that can be done with Sram. So in the comment section below, let me hear your best enablers for both Whir, or not enablers, the best decks, modern playable decks, or even frontier playable decks that these go in. And those are the pieces that I think we should be picking up. Because it's inevitably, you saw last time what happened to the Platinum Imperium. Platinum Imperium went crazy just because Madcap Experiment was printed. So we need to find those specific niche. So in this next week, as spoiler season unravels, let's put our heads together and really think of what these cards can do. See if we can brew some decks with these, and then invest in the specific cards that these go in. You have to get ahead of the pack. And a lot of times hype is enough to drive up price, not just if they're playable or not. We've seen plenty of things flame out where people thought it'd be the next best thing in Modern, and still, though, that the prices went like crazy with those cards. So let's go on to some other interesting cards. The Green Wheel Liberator is really, really cool as well. This is another card that I think is insanely good in Modern. This probably will replace the Pig in Zoo. I know that the Pig can gain haste. The one, if you control a mountain, you can it gets +1/+1, then you can give it haste for a red. But this is when the Green Wheel Liberator enters the battlefield with 2 +1 counters of permanent you control left the battlefield. Fetch lands. Turn 2, fetch land, you have a 4/3 on board. It's also an elf, and it's also a warrior. Both of those are very, very relevant tribal types. There's starting to be an aggressive warrior type in Modern. And where I actually like this too is in Frontier. Frontier warriors, green warriors, or just Esper, or not Esper, Absent warriors is a thing. And some of them also do have a +1/+1 counter theme to them, because you are getting a lot of +1/+1 counters with the various, like, Hardened Scales again. Turn 1 Hardened Scales, turn 2 fetch land, Green Wheel Liberator. Yes, please, a 5/4 on turn 2. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think everyone else is okay with that. And again, this is still a Panharmonicon, and the Panharmonicon elves, if you get this late, now it gains 4 counters, right? Yeah, because it triggers twice. Because that isn't enter the battlefield. No, it enters with. Yes, enters with, so you can't even, yes, okay, so that shouldn't work with Panharmonicon, I believe. Someone correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, you can't actually, like, shock this in response, Galvanic Bombardment this in response, if you have Revolt. It will enter with. So that's actually an insanely good card. Wow, Green-Red Aggro just got a new buddy. Speaking of energy, Green Belt Rampager, 1 mana 3/4. This card just seems all sorts of broken, other than I think that the ruling on this is if you have the energy, you have to pay it. Because it says when Greenbelt Rampager enters the battlefield, pay to. It doesn't say you may, you must pay. But if you don't, you have to return it to its hand and you get an energy. This card is pretty good, actually, because even if you get it on turn 3 when you have your 2 energy, it's still a 3/4. And then it works still pretty good with Attune, with the Aether, or even with the Servant. Servant the Conduit. You can have a turn 3/3/4 that only costs you 1, and then cast something else on that turn as well. So it's definitely on curve on turn number 2 or turn number 3. But this card can be pretty busted with just cards that so you can cast this, like on turn 2 you can cast this twice to get 2 energy, and then, I mean, and then if you have any cards that say whenever you cast a creature spell this turn, draw a card, this card can enable that kind of nonsense. So I'm looking at what are some of the Garrick's Pack Leader type cards, or the Teamer, what is it, the Teamer Ascendancy. So this could just be an easy way to draw some cards and then bounce it back to your hand, and you still get some reward, some energy, some the card, the Aether Hub, works really well with this card as well. So really, really powerful card. I think the green energy got a ton better. Fatal Push will keep it in check though, but I think that aggro is back and it doesn't have to be with Smuggler's Copter. You can go other routes. The other card that I think is a bit powerful in the format, and we've got to look at other energy-based strategies. Of course, we're looking at Aetherworks Marvel is probably just a better way to do this, is Gonti's Aether Heart. This is whenever Aether Heart, another artifact enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. So again, speaking of like bouncing back strategies, or even with Sram, the Edificer, gaining a bunch of energy and then taking in a bunch of extra turn, I can see this card becoming very, very broken, because all you have to see is how many energies is that? 3, 6, 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8. So you just have to cast 4 artifacts in 1 turn, and then you can take an extra turn. So I'm sure there are ways to bounce back, even create loops to do this, and then just continue to take every extra turn from here on out. Oh no, you have to exile it. Womp womp. Alright, so maybe this card isn't the greatest. Yeah, I missed that key little point. Exile Gonti Aether's Heart. Who knows, maybe some sort of energy-based strategy will want this. I think for just taking 1 extra turn for 6 mana, there's better ways to do it. It does give extra turns in non-blue base colors, but yeah, now that I just saw that, it definitely is not what I expected. Okay, that's probably just gonna be. It probably will be playable. Someone will try to play it for sure. Yeah, because I guess it's only paying what 6 energy to take an extra turn after that, but that's an Aetherworks Marvel trigger. Yeah, I don't know. That card's kind of weird. So let's just skim over really quickly to see if there's anything else. It looks like every color will get this. You may cast a converted mana cost with 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost, which is insane because, again, this just creates a bunch of broken type strategies in Modern with like the Cascade type cards, which you want to cascade into. So we're looking at like Living End base. So yeah, those type of decks can have these at least to cast a busted spell. So I think that the card that gets a lot better is the Ancestral Visions. Yeah, that by far with both the Yanni's expertise and the Sram's expertise. So maybe there'll be a Chandra's expertise or a Sahili's expertise that we'll be getting out of the other colors. So I think that not particularly this card. This is kind of like the 3 for just 1 card is always does see play, but this is Secure the Waste for like Modern still exists. I mean, this does ramp you up. This almost feels like a Aether Vial type card, because on your turn 4 you're casting this and you're still casting another card. So a deck like Soul Sisters, of course, would love this card. I think that since they're artifacts rather than white creatures, though, you might not want it with Honor of the Pure, but this is pretty good to cast it, and then you could even cast another card right off of this in. So what can we even hit? I want to say Goblin Bushwhacker, but that one. But I mean, even a card like this with Goblin Bushwhacker would be pretty insane. Of course, you'd have to be on turn 6 because you still have to surge in the Goblin Bushwhacker. So you could go like Shram's Expertise into Pia Nalar, and then into Goblin Bushwhacker or Reckless Bushwhacker, and then you're swinging in for so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 damage. But again, that's a lot of mana. It's still 6 mana to get that off. But something like Shram's Expertise, and then all creatures you control gain haste. Is there any card like that for 3 mana? Or just pumping them up and giving haste? I mean, the sky is the limit with what a card like this can do. So I really like this type of card. I think it's a well-designed card that has a lot of busted things that it can do. Some of these even filler cards seem pretty interesting. The Revolt, even on this, a 3/3 flying for 3, good filler. Not going to talk much about this. Drawing a card if something has left the battlefield. Again, fetch lands with this. Is it another Elvish Visionary type card? It's an elf as well. So now you have Elvish Visionary at 2, and then Elvish or Silkweaver Elite at 3. And they're both drawing cards. So any sort of like Ral the Ancestors type deck in with the Elf Tribal could be viable, or just even the Court of Calling type ability off of a fetch land. So fetch land, Court of Calling, find this. It's not too terrible. I think that it might just be the 3 mana. If this is 2 mana, it'd be just another Elvish Visionary, but the 3 mana might make it a little unplayable. And then we have more things that are gaining a ton of energy, and more improvised type cards that can be cheated out. So I think that the Sweatworkers Brawler gets interesting in decks that try to put out like a servo exhibition turn 2, and then turn 3 you can actually tap those to reduce its cost to 2. I don't think that hitting a Bushwhacker off that would be good because your artifacts are tapped. But I mean, there's plenty of ways to really bust this improvise. It's Convoke for all artifacts. So even cards like the Prism get really good with like the improvised type decks. So anywho, those are some spoilers, very good spoilers, and I really think that out of the 3 game changers that we really need to look at would be the Fatal Push, the Whir of Invention, and the Sram Senior Edificer. So that's your homework for this week, is to really look at cards that these do well with, and then Market Monday next week we will put it all together with some other spoilers and make a game plan for what cards I think that we should invest in, specifically targeting Modern. I would say Modern would be the key one, because Modern seems to have the biggest price increases when a new set breaks something out of like the older cards. So again, there's your homework. Comment section below. You can of course private message me. Let's get to work on this. Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.